Good afternoon. Let's call our 6:30 City Council meeting to order. Madam City Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilmember Shropshire, Councilmember Robertson,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Renee, Councilmember Bailey, Councilmember Cummings, Councilmember Cook, Councilmember Butler, Councilmember Gordon. Mayor Pro Tem Renee, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Invocation will be by Pastor Stinson, First Madilu United Methodist Church, and then pledge of allegiance. Please rise.
Okay. The correction is East Point First Malibu United Methodist Church, the longest name in church history, but that East Point is very, very important. I want to start by reading a quick scripture, Acts, the 2nd chapter, verses 1 through 4. We are in the Pentecost season, and this is what happened on the day of Pentecost. And when the day of Pentecost was fully come, they were all of one accord in one place. And suddenly there came a sound from heaven as of a rushing mighty wind, and it filled all the house where they were sitting. And there appeared to them cloven tongues of fire, and it sat upon each of them, and all were filled with the Holy Spirit, and began to speak in other tongues as the Spirit gave them utterance. This is the word of God for us, the people of God. Thanks be to God. That scripture is so important for a body such as this, because they were not only together in one place, but they were on one accord, which means they were pulling in the same direction to do the same thing for the benefit, not just of themselves, but for their community. And because of it, the Holy Spirit fell upon them and gave them power. So whenever those who are in authority are on one accord, they can be filled with the Holy Spirit. But it does not only benefit them, because they were able to go out into the community and make the community also on one accord, because everyone heard the same message, no matter what language or what country they came from. So are you on one accord? The city of East Point will be on one accord. Won't you pray with me? Oh Lord our God, we give you thanks for this day. We give you thanks for the opportunity to come in your presence, to serve you and to serve your people. We thank you for this body of leaders that deem it not robbery to give it their time, to serve their community as servant leaders. Now, O Lord, be with them in this meeting as only you can. Allow your Holy Spirit to empower them, to give them your wisdom, to seek your plan. We give you honor and glory in advance, for you are so worthy. It's in the mighty name of Jesus the Christ we pray and ask it all. Let us all say, amen. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands.
Thank you, Pastor Stinson. Our announcement, Sergeant of Arms is Robinson, Officer Robinson. Thank you. Presentations and announcements. Presentations and announcements. Do we have any? Our first presentation is by the Atlanta Eagles celebrating June as Pride Month and acknowledging East Point for the Drag Down South Public Arts event. Please come forward. City Manager, Deputy City Manager.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We have Mr. Christopher Swain, our Public Art Coordinator, who is here this evening to guide you in the presentation, and I believe he has Mr. Richard Ramey joining him this evening from the Atlanta Eagle, as well as the Flower Cottage here in the city of East Point.
Mr. Swain, turn your mic on.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now? I said I want to begin with a quote from the late Maya Angelou that simply says, "All great artists draw from the same resource, the human heart, which tells us that we are all more alike than we are unalike." So I want to begin by saying that Drag Down South was a great event. I want to thank all the residents who came out and enjoyed this. It was a great opportunity to present performance art for the city of East Point on a level that is never experienced. This event was epic, and I want to thank all of you who were here for that event. I know some of you had excused absences, but the ones who came out, I appreciate it. I want to thank the ones who were present. I want to thank all the people who supported this event, and I also want to thank the ones who didn't support this event, because unfortunately there were a few protesters at this event as well, one of which arrived about 1 o'clock that afternoon and drove around and was looking for a parking space in the VIP spaces. I informed him that those spaces were reserved for VIP guests, and he informed me that he was a friend of a council person. And he named that person. I was like, well, that person didn't put you on the list, so you can't park here. So the police directed him to a different place to park, and we moved on with the festivities. On a lighter note, simultaneously, there were a group of East Point residents who converged on the lawn while we were setting up and volunteered to help set up the event. So that shows you what community looks like in the city of East Point. Additionally, there were other local businesses who see me on the news that week leading up to the event talking about it. And they called me and was like, "Chris, why didn't you tell me this was happening? We would love to have supported this event." So as of next year, we have additional support for this event. So without further ado, I'd like to bring up my partner in crime, business proprietor of the Atlanta Eagle and the East Point Flower Cottage, Mr. Richard Ramey.
Good evening, everyone. I'm so happy to be here before you, and I just wanted to come with a special thank you and tell y'all that 59 years of my life I've spent here in East Point. I've been very blessed to either have had a home or business here my whole life. Flower Cottage just celebrated 34 years here on moved from Main Street to Conley, and still going strong thanks to the community support we have here. This event here was very special to me. Many years ago, 25 years ago, I bought a little bar called Atlanta Eagle, and through the years we've done a lot for the city of Atlanta and in the community as a whole. But to bring this show to the city of East Point was very special to me. It's my hometown. There's not many cities in this country that have the diversity and welcomes the diversity that East Point does. East Point was shown in such an incredible positive light throughout all media. And it really made me proud to say East Point is my hometown. So I thank you for allowing Christopher and I to bring this to the city. I think the citizens of East Point that came out just had an incredible evening. And a special thank you to Miss Jennifer Holliday that closed the show for me. She could not get over our city. She just absolutely loved it. And she told me the stories of her being at Lenox and going to Neiman's and stuff. And she said, every time I went somewhere, someone said, "Oh my gosh, I'll see you in East Point. I live in East Point." So she was just really thrilled with our city and had such a good time. And I thank you all for welcoming her in such a warm way. She was just awesome. It was my first time meeting her as well. So I was a little overcome with her history of our support to the LGBTQ community. She has supported us for, she said, over 43 years. And it meant a lot to me to have her here at this show. So hopefully East Point will have us back. I think the entertainers every one of them was overcome with joy. We had one entertainer that was not expected, that she was from Cumming, Georgia, and they canceled her show here. And I reached out to her and I said, "Hey, why don't you come and be part of East Point? We'll show you how we welcome, people and everything." This is just an art form. The entertainers are true entertainers. Like I said at the show, drag is not a crime and never will be. And it's just a form of entertainment. Some people like it, some people don't, just like all entertainment. And so I'm proud to have brought this show to my city. My hat's off to each and every one of you, and I appreciate you allowing this to be. I've got thousands of pictures. I've never seen so many pictures in my life, but there was one that stood out. So I had this for y'all to hopefully put in City Hall. It's the City Hall lit up, and I just absolutely love this picture. So I had it framed for y'all, and it says Drag Down South, City of East Point, June 10th, 2023. So hopefully y'all will display this somewhere in the City Hall, and I hope you like it as much as I do, because it's the one that stood out, and I just absolutely had to present this to y'all tonight, and with a big thank you. And as you know, East Point is so lucky to have this gentleman here. He has, we have worked together from back when he was in business license to now with public arts. East Point's very, very lucky to have this gentleman to be part of our community. So thank you, Christopher. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And I myself will be remiss if I didn't mention other departments in the city who helped make this thing a huge success. That would be the police department, specifically Donna Bridges and the chief. The fire department, that would be Chief Kendrick. Public Works, Thomas Rice, who was here before I got here that day, is here after I left that night.
Amazing.
Sanitation, Charles Moore for getting all those trash cans out here. The power department, specifically Elisa Persons, because we had some of the power was out on some of the light poles. She got someone out here that day, they got it done, and we kept moving forward. So I want to thank those guys, and just a big shout out to everybody. Y'all don't understand, people came from Tennessee to come here to be a part of this event. This was huge, and Richard, they were doing a feed on their website, so it was seen all over the country. So East Point went worldwide that day, which was really great. But next year, we're going to do it bigger, we're going to do it better. Next year, I would really like to see some participation from the Conventions Bureau that we have here in East Point, who were markedly absent that day. And I also want to see economic development involved in them, because these are potential people who could live here, set a business here. We have to get out and get involved in these. These events aren't just for fun. This is the economic development of our city. So it doesn't do me any good to generate these sorts of events if we're not going to capitalize upon it. So I want to look into doing that next year as well. So, and also thanks to the citizens. We had limited food trucks. We only had one food truck. So guess what happened? We had thousands of people here. They converged on downtown East Point and spent money in downtown restaurants. Awesome. So it was a revenue generator as well. So thank you so much for everything you do. Appreciate you.
And the owners of the food truck the restaurant is called Just Eat It. They've had a food truck for several years. They are residents here in East Point. I'm so proud of that, and they're actually going to partner with me at the Atlanta Eagle, and they're going to open their restaurant up in my club. So we're going to have some more East Point pointers down there with me, and so I was really proud that they were here. And of course, we wasn't expecting this many people, so next year we'll have more food trucks. But we were expecting maybe a few hundred. We didn't know what to expect, but it was kind of exceeded our expectations. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And hold on just a second. We have some city council members that want to speak. Mr. Councilman Robertson?
Yeah, I want to say this is a prime example of community coming together and making things happen. When I was riding my bike, when I hit the corner and I looked, it was the colors was just bursting out, and the energy, the vibration was just bouncing off, and everybody had a smile on their face. And I thought that was that said everything to itself. On a footnote, I had to give Richard a report because I met this young man when I was campaigning. His shop was right there, and he took me to task about MARTA in the bathrooms. And I have to report that they opened the bathrooms after 3 years, but I was on them for 3 years, Richard, because of you. Because of that incident, the lady come to your bathroom and was pregnant from MARTA. And I thank you so much for sharing that story, but I've been carrying that. Great job to see you back again, working effectively in the community as you have been a business person in Ward A in East Point for so long. Thank you. Now yield.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. First of all, I would like to thank Richard. I would like to thank Chris for a wonderful event. It was truly energetic, and I think that some of that energy has transformed East Point and City Hall, and we're looking for more positive things. So it was a great event, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. And I think the people did too. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. I just wanted to say thank you to you, Richard, and Christopher Swain as well. Chris, first, you always put on the most amazing shows and events, and I should have called you when I turned 50. I don't know what I was thinking.
You're not 50.
51. But Richard, it was my first time meeting you in person. I've been a silent customer to Flower Cottage over the years, but it was just such a pleasure to meet you. We had an amazing crowd of people. I mean, I didn't even know this area could facilitate that number of people. I was in shock. But thank you so much for all that you did. I know it was hard work, and we just want to thank you for all of your diligent work and the success of your event. Thank you so much.
Cook?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I had to sit here and try to figure out how to figure this, Richard. But I want to send accolades towards Chris. I harass him quite a bit as an employee as I'm moving through the building on a normal day-to-day basis. But what got my attention this past weekend is that you were probably the most broadcast face identified with East Point for that weekend, way more so than the mayor. And I want you to live all that down for the rest of the weekend. Don't let your head blow up on you.
Okay.
But it was so heavy that my wife had the news on, and I'm walking through the kitchen, and she was looking at the television. She turned to me and she said, "Don't you know that guy?" So, I mean, and you broadcast what? Was it international? All right. I hope you live all this down. You still have to work here.
And thank you so much. Unfortunately, I was one of those people who was not able to attend. We had a family reunion in Selma, Alabama that weekend. But I'm gonna tell you, a lot of my neighbors went and they loved it. And I heard nothing but great words of encouragement and support and congratulations for the event. So congratulations to you and your team. I really appreciate it. And thank you, because every time I visit your shop, you're always so gracious, and sometimes it's always at the last minute. And I truly appreciate your kindness. And I really do appreciate you being here in East Point. Thank y'all. We look forward to the next one as we grow this event. Let's continue it. And I love the picture too. All right, so if that's it, we're gonna move on to the next thing. Chris, thank you again. Do you have anything else?
No, I think that's it. Let me make sure.
That's right. I know when you're thanking everybody, you gotta thank everybody, I promise.
No, we're good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And he thanks everybody. He really do from the bottom of his heart. Thank you.
But if you guys wouldn't mind, could you guys want to gather and we could take a picture with the picture? Just
Oh,
to
no,
mark
don't
this
mind.
event, please.
I think we could do, I think that's a
Thank
great
you.
idea. Okay.
Good with your hands? You like moving your hands? One, two, there we go.
Planning, Director Smith. Next up is short-term rentals. Deputy City Manager,
Good evening again. We have Mrs. Kimberly Smith, Director of Planning and Community Development. She is here this evening with a team member from Granicus who actually facilitates our short-term rental monitoring, tracking process on behalf of the city of East Point. I know you all have had several questions, so Ms. Smith asked the Granicus representative to be here this evening in hopes of answering some of those questions you've had about the process.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Deputy City Manager, excuse me. Pro Tem Mayor, I just wanted to introduce Bruce McCaskill. He's here. He's the representative and he's the account executive for our Southeast area. And he's going to be given a brief presentation that hopefully address some of the questions that you all have had in reference to our program with short-term rentals.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks, Mayor and Council, for having me here this evening. I'm going to go through some of the data, hopefully answer some of your questions. Over the last year, we've been up and running, going through identifying the short-term rentals, answering the phone calls, going through that process. Please, if you have any questions at any time, just stop me. I'll hopefully be able to answer that question. If there's anything that I can't answer tonight, I will definitely get you an answer, respond back to everybody. So just quick agenda. I'm going to go through the current kind of short-term rental market in East Point as of this week. So as you know, short-term rentals change quite all the time. People take their listings up and down. So this is what we've identified this week. I've got the number of active short-term rentals. I've got the percentage broken out based on whole house and then homestay properties. And then I've got the number of corporate-owned properties versus individually owned properties. And then I've got a good estimate of the short-term rentals broken out by the different wards, so A through D. And then I'll go over some of the data, talk a little bit about the data on our hotline, active and pending registrations, excuse me. And then the identified STRs recently that we're getting ready to send letters out. And then I'll open it up for Q&A. Does that sound good for everybody? Perfect. So this is the current market right now of short-term rentals. So this would be the actual number of properties. Currently, there's 467 active properties inside the city limits. This is just kind of a breakdown of that data. So the average nightly rate, and this was as of, I pulled it on over the weekend, I think it was on Sunday. So about the average nightly rate is about 111. So you take in consideration the lowest to the highest. We call medium nightly rate across all of those 469 properties. It's about 111 per night. Over to the right, to use types, this can be a breakdown of the physical properties themselves. So 87% of those properties were single-family homes, and about 12% were multifamily. So that's going to include the townhomes, condos, apartments. And then over to the left is going to be the actual unit types broken out by homestay and whole house. As you can see, about 78% were whole house. That's where that owner is not present. And about 22% were homestay, and that's where your definition is where that owner is present. Any questions so far? Everybody's good? So next I'll go into the corporate owned. And if you see these black marks here, I just redacted some of the information. So I didn't know if you want to have that public or not, so just kind of checked it out, but you can see that inside your system, obviously. But currently what we've identified is 121 different entities that were corporate, so LLCs, C corporations, S corporations inside East Point. That makes up about 26% currently of the short-term rentals that you have inside the city. And then short-term rental owners, non-corporate would be 346, so about 74%. Just to put it in context, that's what we see kind of nationally, is 20 to 30% of, corporate owned. Oh, go ahead.
Of those 26% that are corporate owned, do you know how many corporations own multiple units?
I can find that out for you.
Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Hold on, let him finish the presentation and then we'll.
Okay.
Is your presentation very long?
No, it's just a couple more slides, so that makes sense.
And then,
Okay, perfect. So this is broken out per award. So this is an estimate. We're actually in the process right now of getting more defined on street level from the county. But this would be estimates broken out based on those 467 properties across the different A, B, C, and D wards. And I will have this presentation sent out to everybody so you have this information. And we'll kind of get this updated. We can do it quarterly if you want to, or however often you want to see that, different changes. As you can see, kind of the B ward definitely has the larger amount, about 174 properties. Next largest would be the A, pretty close to C ward, and then D ward's the smaller area with about 58 different properties. And this is our hotline. So this is just showing data that we've had over the last year. We've had 63 calls. We've had 6 calls in the past 30 days. Majority of the calls are inquiry calls. So, calling about short-term rentals inside the neighborhood, ones that they considered maybe illegal that have called in, broken out down over here. We've got complaint by address. Once again, I just redacted that information because I didn't know if you wanted that public, but that's good data to have. As you can see, that top one there that's redacted, it has 6 calls already for the year. This is a way to kind of track those owners, or there may be LLCs or corporations that are not being good hosts or tenants to the community, to reach out to them, to kind of be able to keep track of that information. And this is all inside of our system. And this is obviously your page here. So if you go to your homepage, we go to departments, planning, and then to the short-term rental site, which has the apply for a permit, pay your rental tax. Then the hotline, you can do it either online or call the local number to report that. It is manned 24/7, 365 days a year. And then current registrations, you currently have 81 that are approved. I think it's 15 to 17 that are pending. And then we've got 249 properties that we've identified that we're going to send first letters out. Currently, there's 3 different letters. So the first letter is kind of a informational letter, letting them know that East Point has regulations. Here's the process to go through as a short-term rental. Here's the documents that you need. Refers them to the link. Second letter is going to be more of, we've sent you out a first letter. Here's the penalty if you don't go ahead and apply. And the third letter is going after the person's not doing that, going to that penalty phase. So we've got 249 properties that we've got the letters uploaded that we're going to start sending out and send that out. I'll give it to the planning team, but probably in the next week or so. And that's it for the presentation on my end. So I'll open it up to Q&A.
And I'll get to it.
So my second question is, out of the 249 that have been identified that haven't paid their fees, are those numbers included in the numbers, the total numbers you said, the short-term rentals?
I'm sorry, so the 249 properties that we've identified, we haven't sent a letter out to originally, that's going to be in that 469, correct?
So yeah, it is.
Yes, sir.
So that is my question, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Councilman Cook?
Thank you. What I noticed during the presentation is something that I think we're going to have to verify as we communicate on the progress. And this is what I'm talking about. I represent Ward C. In terms of the whole playing field, that ward is very restrictive as to how much short-term real activity we will allow. It's based on the zoning category. And just off the top of my head, I know that one area is right as you enter the city of East Point on Hitland, right there where the Miss Winters is. Down that street is a bunch of duplexes. They all qualify. Then you have the apartments that are on Washington Road. I live in an apartment. I can participate in short-term rentals, believe it or not. But the two of those together won't equal the number that I saw flash by me. So tell me if I'm correct with this assumption. Now, one of the problems right now is the number of sites where we have rental activity, and we're determining that from some other sources. For example, and not to throw mud at them, let's just say that they're on the A and B, ARB list as one of their bona fide rental sites. But they're located in a part of the city where the zoning won't allow that activity, period. Now, how do we get around to actually sorting that out? My guess is going to be you got to go for those who you can tell by your list and by the zoning criteria, they're bona fide. And maybe the only issue they have to go through is registering with you. And you're probably going to make that the top priority. And by the time we get all that merged on the space, the bootleggers will probably surface at that point. They're in the wrong area because of the zoning criteria. And for a whole bunch of other reasons, they may not ever make that list. I'm speculating, based on how long we've been working with what we have and how far we've gotten, that might take another year. Would you say I'm off base with that? Or that's pretty much what you may see as what you have to do as you're policing this process? And I'm not putting all the blame on you, because you walked into, this is what we got.
Oh, no,
We got to clean it up.
Right. Yeah, so what we're doing, I'll preface this, we're pulling the data in and then providing that data to the city. So the data we're getting is going to be as good as what we get from the county, which we're matching up the parcel, like you mentioned, right? And we're monitoring, we're up to 74 different sites now. So the biggest sites are Airbnb, VRBO are kind of the biggest ones. They make up probably 50%, 80%, depending where you are. We're capturing other niche sites as well. But if it's a kind of a, somebody's renting person to person or something, that's not, I don't want, that's not something we're going to capture. They have to be online first to capture. But what we do is we do snapshots. So when somebody is online, we're taking a snapshot of that actual listing. So for example, their Airbnb listing, you'll be able to see their calendar, reviews, all that documentation that you can see that they're active and actively renting. And I'm not saying about East Point, everybody's different, but a lot of areas, sometimes the hosts, when they catch on that they're using some type of software, what they'll do is they'll put that listing up. As soon as it's rented, they take it down. And then they wait till that person leaves and they put it back up and then take it down. It's just that constant off and on. Well, by doing these snapshots, we can capture those times they put it up and on. So we at least have some kind of proof. So if you had to go to magistrate or had to go, to court for that person that's continuously, not paying registrations, not following the rules, getting complaints and calls, we do have that data inside of our system so that you can document that. But what you're saying is not unusual. The whole country's like that. It's almost a Wild West sometimes with short-term rentals. So I definitely understand it. And we're here, and that's, I came tonight, obviously, work with your teams, work on strategies, like good strategy. Let's figure out a strategy to address each ward, what problems you're seeking. We can, talk to other customers. What are their best practices? What's worked with them? If we can have that kind of, work with the team here, figure out a strategy that at least ease the pain or help you get to kind of those next steps in a quicker fashion.
Well, I would close by saying your credibility is increasing because you at least see the problem the same way most of us do. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Madam Pro Tem Mayor. This might be for staff and the Granite School Rep. Your first name again? I'm sorry, sir.
Bruce, sorry.
Bruce. And it might be for staff as well. The question is, can you pull back that screen that had the East Point screen where you applied the application? You're right.
The ward? I'm sorry.
No, go back to the East Point website screen.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Okay, can you explain where it says pay your rental taxes? That might be for you or it might be for staff, as I said 3 times. But can you tell me what that means right there, where it says pay your rental?
Sure, so it's paying the short-term rental tax. So when we started with you, this is before the state took over doing the platform tax. So the platform tax is mandated by the state. The one platform that does a good job is Airbnb. I've heard that across the state, they do a good job because they built their software so they can actually collect the tax. Now, is it 100% enforced by Airbnb? Probably not. What it's called a VCA, voluntary collection agreement. So sometimes the host has that option to opt out and say, I'll do it myself. The other platforms, Expedia Group, which owns VRBO and HomeAway, their software was not built to collect taxes. They do have it, but it's not great success with that side. So just talking with other municipalities, we just signed with Atlanta 2 weeks ago. That was another concern. So a lot of these platforms are supposed to do the right thing. I know Airbnb does try to do the right thing, but there's 74 other, there's 70 plus platforms out there.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Sure.
I'm hearing some concerns that they're being double taxed. That's why I was asking you. Again,
Right.
I'm not sure who handles that, but have you identified that they are double taxed? Sometimes if somebody's paying a short-term rental, they take the tax and then they go through our system, then it's a tax.
Right.
Is that correct? Again, I'm trying to get staff to help answer this
I'd
question.
I'd have to look into the data, but I can certainly find out for you. That's right. And there's ways that we can adjust that, and, there's things that we can do to, fix that so we're not having that issue, if that is an issue.
Deputy City Manager, can you get staff to help me answer this question, please? Can we identify that they are being double taxed? I just wanted to see if that's true or not.
From the city's perspective, staff has not found that the city is double taxing them because they do have to pay the occupational license tax fee to operate as a short-term rental here in the city. Then we know there is another tax beyond our control, as he said, that is done by the state. So we haven't figured out where an additional quote-unquote double tax is coming from, which is one of the reasons we were checking with Granicus to see if there's another tax within the system that the city is not aware of, but that maybe they are aware of that's being charged.
And that's fine, because again, this is something that's coming from residents and has identified it. So that's why I was just trying to make sure that if it does exist, can we just handle it? Thank you for your presentation. I yield.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. I have a couple of questions. First one is, when you charge this, what is the amount for those fines that they're charged, that they're assessed for the particular violations? What's that dollar amount that they're charged, I guess, for first or second offense or?
I'd have to refer to code enforcement on that.
Okay, so it's based, that's something that.
Yeah, they set it up and then they do it through letters or they do it through their reach out. We kind of provide the data for them to reach out to those people.
Okay, and I know we have certain areas that, where short-term rental is not, they aren't supposed to have those short-term rentals there. So in an instance where you do find someone that there's a house that's on Airbnb and it shouldn't be in there, as far as those, how do you guys go about enforcing, or you just let them know that this particular house, for this house that you own here, it can't be used for short-term rental? How do you, what's the process?
Sure. So we're going to identify them and then inside of our system, and we're getting ready to do some training with your code enforcement, but inside of our system, we're going to have your compliance status. So we'll be able to have a list of everybody that's non-compliant. So your example would be in this zone, R1, R2, whatever your zones are, they're not allowed to have a short-term rental here. They would have a complete list of that. You can reach out to them via mail, and we do that. And the reason we do mail is because sometimes you have LLCs out of town, owners. We're not sending to the actual physical address, but to that property tax appraiser, assessor data. That's what we're sending to, so their actual physical mailing address. Now, if we have their registration, obviously they can't register if they are in the wrong area. That wouldn't happen. So you're not going to see registration for that. But we do have that based on it. And once again, it's good. Our data is matching up to the assessor data, so it's as good as the county's data. So sometimes the county may have a lag of a couple months of getting updated because you have turnover in real estate. Somebody sold the property, a new owner comes in, it may not come into our system for a couple months based on the speed of the assessor's office.
Okay. And last question, it may be something for
Sure.
the deputy city manager. I don't know if she can answer this question. So let's just say that I go in and I'm purchasing a home and I want to use it. This is something I'm potentially using for short-term rental or rental property. Is there something that we have on the front end, as opposed to if I purchase a home, I go in and I make the renovations, I want to use this, it's not going to be my primary residence, but it's going to be something that I'd like to use for additional income. Is there something on the front end that where we can check, or we can, you can have these owners before they purchase this home for what their initial intent is going to be, that we let them know on the front end? Do we have anything in place that I mean, because I'd hate to purchase a house and put X amount of dollars into it, want to use it for short-term rental, and then come and find out now, lo and behold, that I can't do it. So,
Unfortunately, it's kind of like when a person moves into a home or they purchase a home and then they find out the zoning is not what they thought it was.
okay,
So I know one of the things the department tries to do, and what we tried to do in the past, is encourage people to call the planning department before they make a sizable purchase such as a home.
okay.
Whether it's gonna be for their primary use or for a secondary use or for a short-term rental. I do know that the ordinance for short-term rentals are posted within our municipal code as well as on our website. And Ms. Smith has some
Okay.
other things options to do.
I'd just like to add that we also encourage anyone that's interested in doing business in the city and investing in the city to always submit for a zoning verification letter. We highly recommend that for anyone in this situation or any other type of land development situation, is to submit for a zoning verification letter so you have the permitted uses in writing.
Okay, thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Karen Renee. Thank you for your presentation. My question is about the consequences. I noticed that one resident actually received 6 complaints. And is there, I just want to know, like, in terms of the consequences, is there ever a time that a house is eliminated from being able to be a short-term rental?
So I can speak in broad on that, and what I see in other cities and areas, and they have what they call a 3-strike rule. So that's pretty popular in most areas where there's 3 offenses and you pull their license, so their short-term rental license, and you may have a 6-month or a 12-month before they can reapply. Now, of course, if they're not registered, somebody who's operating is not registered, obviously can't pull the registration. There would be more of a fine-based, and a lot of places will do daily fines that compounds. So, $100, $500 a day fine, it just compounds and compounds until they go. The only drawback to both sides is, obviously if they're not registered, you do the fines. If you have somebody who's an LLC and has, say, 10 rentals, and they're pulling in a lot of money, those fines, if they're not structured at a high point to them, it's irrelevant. It's just the cost of doing business, and they just write the checks. So really, you have to make it kind of those fines higher up for people, so they take it seriously, and it's not just the cost of doing business.
Thank you for your response. My
Sure.
next question is, I noticed that one address had like 6 complaints. So obviously that's beyond the 3 strikes, or is it based upon what the strike is when you say 3 strikes?
Right, so that's it. So generally, and this is not just East Point in general, but in general, kind of across the short terms, all cities, right? They'll have it's 3 strikes, and there's no like definition of a strike. A strike is, somebody's not following the rules, so maybe it could be a parking issue, could be loud party house, could be sanitation, trash. It's, essentially warnings, 3 strikes, and then so they don't really categorize it as a specific level of a strike. It's 3 strikes. So if they've reached out and you've had an issue, then that's kind of the repercussion.
I know of a short-term rental in Ward B that's definitely problematic. What would I need to do to find out more information about their strike level? Would I call you? What would we need to do? Because it's
Yeah, so code enforcement. So we're gonna start training with them so they can pull reports. So you can see that actually in our dashboard. You can get a report based on the number of offenses or people have called in. You can also, with inside of our system, you can listen to the call. So if you hear that neighbor complaint and calling in, you can hear them actually calling in. We record that. We let them know. You'll be able to see all that data, kind of from beginning to end. So you have the documentation.
So will I be able to call you about this particular short-term rental that's very, like, it's a nuisance in the
Right, it would have to go to the city, so like code enforcement probably. So I represent the company, we have the data, but it's actually your data, so I can't really go in there and touch the data because it's East Point's data, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
But I can certainly help though, if you need help like in guidance or if anything I can do to find stuff or help them get to that point, I can certainly do that.
Thank you.
Does that make sense? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
City Manager, can you kind of chime in because some of this is not according to the ordinance?
City Attorney.
City
Interim
Attorney,
City
please
Attorney.
forgive me, City Attorney.
Now that we have the data, to Councilmember Bailey's point, it will certainly help us in the prosecution of this, because we've, in certain instances, have banned people from the city, as well as banned people from doing business in the city, where they throw on these very lavish parties and have just totally disrupted the neighborhood on more than one occasion. We've not had a whole lot of data, and glad to see that Granicus is here, and we're going to have this robust data pool so that it can assist us in our prosecution. To Councilmember Cummings' point, with homestay lodging, particularly the which I think you were asking about, the owner is required to actually be there, right? So you can't just not be there. And it has to be your primary home. So you can't just buy the house to rent it out totally for that. And I think that's, if anybody had anything else I need to clarify, but I'm gonna email everybody and text everybody that I have information on the full text of the ordinance. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Pro Tem.
Councilmember Gordon?
Thank you. First, Bruce, it's great to see you in person. You were gracious enough to zoom into our HOA boot camp.
Oh, the HOA, yes.
That Councilmember Butler and I hosted a couple of weeks ago, and thank you
okay.
for that.
Sure.
I just want to piggyback off of a question from the boot camp, just for the record. I think on the next slide is where you talked about the incidents that Councilmember Bailey was referring to, and the hotline numbers listed. So one of the concerns we had about the hotline is that, of course, nuisance activity is why there's adverse impact. This whole thing triggered from some years ago from incidents that occurred in Ward D, which is why I think in Ward D, most of Ward D is zoned residential limited, whereby only homestay short-term rentals are allowed for, like, I think all of it with a few exceptions.
Right.
So in contacting the hotline, how, I guess, expedient of a process is it for you to work with the city's code enforcement or other departments necessary to get resolved? Because I know that code enforcement or the police would be called out for nuisance activity. Should concerned homeowners also report to your hotline if they've reported it to either code or the police? Should that work in tandem, or what do you suggest?
So what I would suggest, and this is just from a data perspective, is to have them call us first, because we're going to track the data. We're going to be the extension for code enforcement and the police. So we'll take the call. Obviously, if it's emergency, then we'll refer them to 911 or call the police department. Something that something going on. But if not, then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead, answer the call. We're going to find out what the problem is. We're going to document that information. We're going to try to call that homeowner. If we got the data from the county, call that homeowner and get them to resolve that issue, whether it's a caretaker or that actual owner themselves. And that's going to be all documented. Once we've done that in our system, it's going to automatically, we'll notify code enforcement via email to let them know. Because obviously at 3 in the morning, they're not going to be working. But I would suggest to go through the hotline first, just because we're collecting all that data. And then it simplifies the process, because it's kind of that, A, B, and C going through that process.
Thank you. All right, so, City Attorney, can you go back to the slides, Bruce? And thank you for your presentation, because we've been getting a lot of calls in Ward B in references. Can you go back to the slide where you have the data about the home ownerships with the complaints? Right.
Oh, you mean this right here?
They're
the hotline?
redacted out. No, the other one. Oh, no, this is good, because you got 6 here, 5 here, 4, 3, 2, 1. According to our ordinance, if you get 3 within 365 days in that 1 year, you could be booted off the short-term rental. Of course, there's a hearing, but, and I guess we're just now getting it. So, City Attorney, are we hauling any of them into court at this time?
Yes, ma'am. We're actually currently prosecuting violations, but we are not using this hearing procedure because we didn't have the data.
Okay, so how are we connecting the data to the data that you have? How are we connecting it to the court systems so that he's more aware of it. And so this could be used as evidence, because the problem that we're getting is a lot of residents are calling. And I'm gonna call the street out. Lyle Street in Ward B is a major problem for us. I don't know why these addresses are redacted. I don't know what the privacy is. And this is the deal. Residents are complaining, and they're becoming hotel and motel employees when they're having to go through the neighborhood and direct traffic, call the police about traffic. They're blocking mailboxes. They're lining up on the streets. They're having parties every Thursday and Friday and Saturday night. And then on Monday morning, school buses still can't get through. People trying to get the kids to school, and traffic is still everywhere. Smoking marijuana is real loud. They're having like real loud discussions at 2 and 3 o'clock out in the street, and major parties. And so it's a real problem on Lime Street. I don't know why the address is redacted. I think neighbors should know where these short-term rentals are. I know that our communities are changing, but back in my day, I knew what my neighbors, what time they went to work, what time they came home. I knew when they opened up the curtains in the morning, they was gonna have their first cup of coffee. And we get used to those kind of behaviors and those habits. And so now that we have short-term rentals, we don't know who across the street from us, what's gonna happen, and all that kind of stuff. And I think that neighbors and residents, and even myself, I want to know if it's short-term rental or what's going on, if they're going to have a party this week. Do I need to put my dog up from yelling in the yard? I just think that those things are very important as we carry on ourselves as a residential community. And so the first fine can't be lower than $50, and it can't be going higher than $1,000. But the biggest thing I like is the fact that 3 strikes you're out. And you can't come back for another 3 years. How are we monitoring whether or not in Ward D, it has to be homestay, from what I understand? And then how are we monitoring that? I mean, are we pulling the property tax records from Fulton County to say, or are they bringing them in when they're registering them with the city? I'm in Ward D, I'm in Ward D, and here's my homestead exemption, and I can only rent out the rooms. And not the whole house. So how are we monitoring that? And also, residents are also complaining about if they don't make the complaint in time. They saying that there's a short-term window for them to make the complaint, and if they don't make it in time, it is not considered a complaint. Can you kind of address that part of, I know I asked a lot and I stated a lot.
No, you're fine. Yeah.
Can you help me with
Yeah.
that? Because I think the residents kind of want to know.
Sure. So I'm going to go back to the first
Yes.
part,
Yes,
which
sir.
you just did. So what I would suggest for this information is we'll get ready to do some training. I'll make a note of this, talk to the person in training, build reports for you. So I think one thing important is a report specifically that everybody could access, right? So look at specific things. So one is the number of complaints. That's one report, right? Another report is broken out by zone or ward for offenders, and have those specific reports. So then you'll have the data to specifically focus on those groups or those people or those LLCs. As far as calling the hotline time limit, that would be more of a city question. I'm not familiar with if there was a time limit to that. I mean, we're manned 24/7. That would be more of a, I guess, legal question, which I wouldn't have the answer to that portion there. But yeah, I think reporting's the data's here. I'll make sure that we get reports built out. We do have unlimited access, so anybody that works for the city has access. We can get them access. I think a big thing is, it sounds from council, at least what I'm hearing, is there's very specific areas, very specific things you're looking for. And I think that would be helpful to have reports where you have that data where you could just fine tune it down to those specific pieces that you're looking for. I think you'd be more successful that way than doing a broad sweep type initiative.
Councilmember Renee, Mayor Pro Tem Renee, you raised a good question, and which was one of the things we were concerned about and discussed at the boot camp too, was how do you know if someone is, adhering to the homestay? But I will say this, in Ward D, which is what I can speak to, we have, where there are HOA communities, they're very engaged. Where there are not HOA communities, the community associations are also very engaged. And so, for instance, in my corridor, a few weeks ago, there was a shooting or gunfire at a home that was a short-term rental. So that's on our radar now, and it was not owner occupied. So unfortunately, in this instance, we had to wait until something negative occurred. Right. So I guess the point that I'm making is that the connectivity engagement of residents speaks volumes. And
Right.
so when we have that, we can utilize that as well. It just speaks to what I think Councilmember Renee was alluding to earlier. When you're cohesive and talk, we can get information and we can help this
Right.
process much
No,
better.
and absolutely. And to your point about the homestay and owner-occupied, non-owner-occupied, we're capturing that data. It's what the host puts out there, the owner puts out there. So when they say on their Airbnb, full house rental, you get full access. Obviously, that's somebody that doesn't live there. You can also look at timeline. So it's somebody that's doing it. If you get to the homestead thing, 6 months or how many nights. There's ways to get that information. I think we just need to, like I mentioned, get this into reports where it's more digestible and trying to look at the big picture and have specific things that for each ward or each area that's important and address it based on that data, if that makes sense.
It makes sense. And thank you, Bruce, for
Absolutely.
your presentation, and thank you for answering all of our questions. If there's no other further questions, we'll move on to the next agenda item. Presentation for Wellstar Hospital, Councilmember Joshua Butler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. So, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, residents of East Point, City Council, and people watching on television, on the internet. Commissioner Marvin Arrington says that with the closing of AMC South, we live in a hospital desert. We have approximately 200,000 people that do not have access to emergency care south of I-20. And when you compare that to Charleston, South Carolina, with a population of 290,000 people, there are 11 hospitals. So the solution to getting emergency healthcare services back to East Point is a hospital authority. Next slide, please. Senator Donzella James and I have been working for more than a year to find a solution to this hospital problem. And in that, we have gotten some partners that are willing to help us solve this problem. The first one is former Atlanta City Councilwoman and former mayor of City of Atlanta, and now liaison to President Joe Biden, has agreed to help us find money to reopen South Fulton from the Biden administration. On June 7th, we had a meeting with Senator Ossoff's team, who told us by our surprise that they had been monitoring our progress in the development of the hospital authority and are willing to help find financing to do that, including maybe exploring opportunities to help shore up the hospital by having some veterans come to that hospital as well. I heard from this council, in particular, one of my colleagues said that the county should be involved. Leading the charge for Fulton County to be a part of this authority is Commissioner Marvin Arrington and Commissioner Khadijah Abdul Rahman. Next slide, please. Additional partners. Leading the charge to have the city of South Fulton partner with us with this hospital authority is Councilman J.C. Sebastian and Councilwoman Carmelita Gums. And there are many other members on that council who want to see this happen, because we know we don't need just one hospital, we need several hospitals. Councilman Joe Karn from College Park has also expressed interest in joining this. Their entire plan is to start the hospital authority with East Point, Fulton County, and the city of South Fulton, and to offer invitations to all of the other southern cities that are located in Fulton County to have this hospital authority. Next slide, please. Another concern that has been addressed is funding. The purpose of a hospital authority, there are several things, but one of the most important things is funding.
how are we going to fund an hospital? The hospital authority serves as a conduit to collect both public and private funds. So we had an expert that has done 43 of these type deals who estimates to operate South Fulton Hospital for 2 years with no revenue would cost about $50 million. Fulton County also has done a study that says that maybe there's $100 million needed for South Hospital. But let's put that number in comparison. If you've driven up 85 North and you've seen Children's Hospital on North Druid Hills, their budget is $3.4 billion, and they raised $800 million. So even if we need $150 million, that could be done in public and private money. Coming from Washington, D.C., the state of Georgia, and Fulton County. But I want to let this council know, no city will go bankrupt having to fund a hospital authority or be responsible for keeping a hospital open, because at the time of formation, the authority becomes its own entity. Next slide, please. But there are benefits to having authority. The number one is people get to say how they want that hospital to be managed. And they do that through their representatives, who then represent people to sit on the board to manage the authority. So no longer will East Point be at risk ever again for losing a hospital, because now you have people that are not looking at the bottom line only, but people that are looking at managing the hospital and bringing in the tools necessary to make it work. A good example is what happened to Grady in 2007. When you had a hospital authority, they went out there, found good management, changed the structure of the hospital, and now Grady is thriving. The next thing that I heard from is quality. No one wants to go to a hospital where you have poor quality. By having people invested in the hospital in terms of its board, now you get to maintain the quality control that you see. Finally, by development authority, we get the tool necessary to negotiate WellStar in order to acquire AMC South. Why that is important is because we need the certificate of need to operate, and to try to get a new certificate of need in this area, period, is difficult, if not impossible, coming from the state of Georgia. We also, the senator and I, also met with Morehouse School of Medicine, who is going to be getting $45 million from the county, and who is willing to take that $45 million and put it into a building that they will own, which would be South Fulton. We've had those conversations, and our research has shown that teaching hospitals are very profitable. Next slide. So the ask is that this council leads the way, and the first to vote tonight to have a resolution stating that we are committed to having a hospital authority. That ends my presentation, and I'm available for any question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Cook. I was looking around. I apologize. I looked over. Councilman Cook.
This question probably should be directed maybe to the city attorney and for the deputy city manager, only because of her past experience. And this is the issue. The mayor of Atlanta did something several weeks ago that was pretty smart for the medical center on Boulevard. I got to think about this the other day when apparently something that happened up on Cleveland Avenue with that structure. It looked like it was deserted. So the issue is, WellStar still owns the property. And unless we do something to really stop the process, they could easily sell that property. The new owners could start petitioning to change the zoning status. And I'm thinking maybe we need to do what Atlanta's already done, is go ahead and put a lock on that zoning category right now, that it stays land is used for medical care. Now, being that specific on land use is not that uncommon for the city because the area up on Dotson, Ben Hill, that entire site is zoned for education. And we're talking the traditional means of education. And I think last time we had a discussion on that, that zoning was changed to that category, I believe, in 1953. But everybody who's interested in buying a part of that property to use for drug rehab or anything else where they can use the structures up there for housing have been refused. Only if you're a school the way we know a school can be, can you even buy a parcel of that, a portion of the parcel of that land. I understand just recently, another portion was sold to another school, so there's actually 2 schools up there. All right, so everybody's nodding their head that I'm looking at, say, yes, Cook, we understand what you're saying. But what would be our next logical step? And should that, or can that be combined with the resolution for the authority? Any responses?
Councilmember Gordon?
Before you, I suggested that the last time we discussed this. You're right, Mayor Dickens did an executive order actually to place a moratorium on the facility in Atlanta, and we discussed that mildly. So I support those efforts for sure, because it will definitely, allow us to move forward, I think, in the most prudent way if we're going to do this. So thank you.
Council, I'm sorry, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, I can wait.
City Attorney, interim City Attorney?
I don't know, my first blush at this would be that it's probably not the best idea to add it to the resolution, Councilmember Cook. I'll be happy to look at it, and with Councilmember Butler's permission, if that's the way you all decide you want to do it, I'll see what the ability is to add it to it, but it probably would be cleaner to do it separately.
Councilmember Lance Robinson?
Thank you, Madam Pro Tem Mayor. Quick question, great presentation. I saw you emphasize a couple of times no taxes, or no city won't have to be there's no financial ask with this resolution, or you won't foresee a financial ask for the city with this resolution. Am I correct?
Yes, you are correct. The only ask may be to cover legal fees, which will be nominal once it's put together. But in terms of the city trying to foot the bill for $100 million or $50 million, no, there will be no monies from the city that will be needed to do that type of ask.
And follow up. So, and then also in reference to the money part, or the structure, the hospital authority, say this resolution is adopted, then after that, then the hospital authority is put together, board members, is that correct?
Yes, it is, with the addition of Fulton County and the city of South Fulton. So we will be the first to pass the resolution. Then Fulton County and the city of South Fulton will adopt a similar resolution, becoming a part of that authority. And then after that, then that's when the structure will come in terms of board members and that part of the authority.
Thank you so much. I yield, Madam Pro Tem,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor.
City Attorney, Mitchell, do you have any thing to say?
I have taken a look at the resolution.
While you
I just
gather,
wish I had.
while
had
you
an
gather
opportunity
your
to
thoughts,
consider.
can I chime in? This is the first that we're seeing this tonight, and I don't know if everybody had an opportunity. I don't know if everybody had an opportunity to read this resolution. My only concern here is, one, we just got it tonight, and this is a really big deal. Two, I would love to have a meeting with the city of South Fulton city council members, along with this council, and the city, and the county commissioners, Marvin Arrington, Khadijah, and the rest of those who represent the city of East Point as well. I like it to be very well known and documented what is agreed by them and how do we work together. I don't think we need to piecemeal this. I think we need to make sure, I think that we need to make sure that all of us are on the same page. I would love to have a sit-down meeting with all of the parties that are listed in this resolution. Right now, we only have, and I'm not really clear on like what does the attorney fees and is it, if we start a hospital authority, what would be the financial obligation that the city is tied into? Every city that I know of who has a hospital authority, there is a financial obligation. But I'm not disagreeing with Councilmember Butler. I just don't know of a city that does not have a financial obligation tied to the city authority, our hospital authority. But these are some of the questions. Can we take this to a work session and in the work session, allow all of the council members or the city manager from the great city of South Fulton and Fulton County city manager or all of the county commissioners come, and so at our work session, so that we can all discuss this. I think it'll be great. The hospital, everybody knows that we want a hospital, and we'll do our due diligence to make sure that we do it. We just want to make sure that when we're obligating ourselves, it is in a legal binding agreement that we move forward and we work within the binding agreement. But we're making sure all of the parties involved have a good understanding of what their part is and how we move forward working together. I yield. The city attorney, and then I'm gonna come back to you, Councilman Butler.
No, Councilman Butler can go. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Go ahead.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I make the motion that we pass, that this council adopts a resolution to form a hospital authority, allowing the city attorney to make any changes necessary that aren't material to us forming a hospital authority.
Second.
It's been motion and properly second. I call for the question and discussion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Mr. Cook?
I personally like your idea, and I would like to make a counter motion that we first send this to work session. Make sure we really all understand and buy into exactly what we think our obligations are. I'm not challenging that idea, but I'm not comfortable with the fact that I haven't seen this document before today too. I got a few questions I would like to get away from. And I think it's worth our while to make sure we're all very comfortable with this process. This is going to be a first for the city. And I'm also saying this from 500 years of work experience, and some of that was spent dealing with hospitals in the right way. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm saying I don't understand every element of that, and I think it's worth our while, if we're going to be on the books for supporting this, that we don't do any of this blindly. And if we got tough areas, we needed some tough responses, some tough answers to it. I'm not that opposed to the idea. I'm opposed to approving it without having a clear understanding of what the city's responsibilities are. It could be it's the perfect thing to do, but I'm not going to tell you that right now because I don't feel that way. I have some questions. So why don't we just go ahead and say, let's hold voting on it tonight, but let's send it to the work session like we would do most stuff. Make sure we walk out of that session with a full understanding of exactly what it is we think we're getting into. I just don't feel brave tonight.
So, Mr. Cook, he is making a second motion. What is your motion again on the floor?
I'm going to this item be sent to work, the next work session scheduled on the calendar for us to have a full, robust discussion on both the pros and cons. So no one will feel like they're in the dark.
I second the motion, but we are in for discussion on this motion.
Is this a substitute motion or a friendly motion? Friendly amendment?
This is actually a city attorney. How would this be?
I think he indicated that he had a counter motion, which would indicate it would likely be considered a substitute motion unless Councilmember Cook wants to make it a friendly amendment, at which point Councilmember Butler would have to accept such.
I can make an amendment. I mean, I'm very comfortable. I'm not trying to force the issue. I just want to recognize the fact that I haven't had time to study it. And I may not be the only one who's too proud to admit that they haven't studied it. And this is not going to be a little popcorn operation here. This is big time stuff. You know, if I can make it clear to myself. I'll back off just a second here and say, Councilman Butler, if you feel what I'm saying or you don't feel what I'm saying, just say so. I'm not trying to stop this train. I just want to make sure we can keep the train moving. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Butler. I'm sorry, Councilman Butler.
Thank you, Councilman Cook. This has been before the council 4 times. Been working on this for an entire year. Our resolution gives us the authority to start a hospital authority. It's not meant to answer all the questions. There is no financial liability for the city for a hospital authority. It operates like any of our other authorities that we have. We have the right, it is true, we have the right to vote on how much money we contribute to that authority at any time or not contribute at any time. It's no different than any of our other urban authorities, our VITA authority, our downtown development authority. And so I call for the question on the original motion.
So do your second still stand and is from Ms. Cons? And so do you have a substitute motion, Mr. Cook, or are we moving on? All right, so I call for the question. All of those who are in favor of this resolution?
Aye.
Aye.
All of those who oppose? No. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Robertson,
Aye.
Councilmember Bailey,
Aye.
Councilmember Cummings, Councilmember Cook,
No.
Councilmember Butler,
Aye.
Councilmember Gordon, Mayor Pro Tem Renee, the motion passed.
And even though I am Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay,
I still get a chance
Mayor
to
Pro
vote.
Tem Renee.
I still get the chance to
Okay,
vote.
go ahead.
So that's
What's
no
your
for
vote?
me. I
Okay.
just want the record to reflect.
Thank
All right,
you.
So we're moving on to the next city council item.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes,
I want to be clear that the original motion was for me to amend it in what way?
No, the motion was for us to have a resolution for a hospital authority, granting you any authority necessary without materially changing
Okay, thank
the,
you.
so it's the legal ease. If anything needs to be corrected, you have that authority to do that. But the
Thank you,
motion
President.
is for a resolution for a hospital authority.
Thank you for the clarity.
all right. So are there any committee reports? Mr. Butler? Wait,
No, ma'am.
Light Department. Mr. Cook? Mr. Robertson?
No, Matt, no.
Okay. So let's move to the next item, adoption of the council agenda.
Pam,
Yes?
I'd like to remove item number 13. I believe that's the correct number. Number 13 from tonight's agenda.
Remove that one?
Right.
All right, so that one's removed. Is there any other ones on there that you would like that council members to have removed? All right, adoption of, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda for tonight
So move.
without, with the removal of
My
number 3?
apologies, yes.
I mean, number 13, I'm sorry.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make a motion to approve tonight's agenda with exception, with removing item number 13.
It's removed and properly second. All those in favor? All those opposed? It passed. Approval of city council minutes?
Madam Mayor,
Yes?
I'd like to make a motion for the approval of the city council minutes from city council's regular meeting on June 5th, 2023 at 6:30 PM.
It's been moved and properly second for the city council minutes to be approved. All of those approve? All of those opposed? All right, it passed. Public hearing, city attorney. City Attorney?
Yes, ma'am. Let's get into Rule 19.
Oh, okay,
Madam
I'm
Mayor.
sorry.
Mayor Pro Tem, sorry. That's
It's
okay.
okay.
No problem. Public hearing shall be advertised as per ordinance. The presiding officer will call for a motion to open and close the hearing. Those in favor of the subject will speak first for a total of 15 minutes. Each speaker will be limited to not more than 3 minutes. Those who oppose the subject will then speak for a total of 15 minutes. Each speaker will be limited to not more than 3 minutes. Speakers may give a total of 3 minutes to another speaker after all those present have had an opportunity to speak. Residents will be given first opportunity to speak. After all residents have been given the opportunity to speak, non-residents may speak. By a majority vote, the council may increase the total time for each side of the subject to a total of 30 minutes per side. Each side will be given the same amount of time. Speakers must adhere to the rules of decorum. Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
I guess I'll go ahead and introduce myself. Tyler McSwain, Senior Planner within the Planning and Community Development. It's a pleasure to be in front of you all, and I'll go ahead and call and sound the first case for the first petition for tonight. Okay? Case for item number 3, ordinance granting a special use permit for a habitable accessory structure within a concurrent variance located at 1262 Wimber Drive. Public hearing is required for this. Again, I'm Tyler McSwain, representing the Planning and Community Development Department. And staff, we do have a presentation for you all as well. I will give a brief presentation, and we'll reserve the rest of the time for any questions from council this evening. For the record, I did want to state the item numbers that are associated with this request. They'll be 2023U 003-003, 2023VC 001-3. And again, those are the associated special use request application and the variance application request. This item appeared before this council. In the last hearing, we had discussion regarding the site and the requests, and also any questions or outstanding permitting questions regarding this petition. For those who are not familiar with this in the audience, this is 1262 Wimburn Drive in East Point. It is located in Ward B. The subject property is currently zoned R1A, which is Urban Residential District. And again, I have stated that this petition does have concurrent applications that go along with this. We have provided some graphics to help illustrate this petition, since there's a lot of going on here on this site. One, I wanted to point out the property in question is the house is in the top right corner, left corner, excuse me, which is the blue house in the subject property. Also wanted to point out on the bottom left corner, you can see the outline of the property, which is not true to scale, but gives you a general idea of the property that we're speaking about. The accessory structures in question for this petition are outlined in this illustration. You will see that the boxes highlighted as A and B are subject for this petition. One, a garage structure, which is the first A highlighted in yellow, and B, a secondary living quarters, which is highlighted in red and closest to the primary structure. I'm going to reference this particular picture because it points out a lot of the questions that we had in the last hearing. One, the adjacent property owner, which is a corner lot to the left, And also where you see the red dot there is the subject property. The adjacent property or the neighboring property to the left did receive an approved variance for the separation between a primary living dwelling and accessory structure that was approved by the city of East Point. The subject property in the petition tonight has ongoing work that has been affecting the legal nonconforming status of the property, which was recommended by staff to pursue these petitions that were presented before you tonight, which is the special use permit and the variance. What you see before you is the site plan that was submitted to us that kind of indicates a little bit more about the built structure and the foundation there on the site, and also a little bit about the distance between the accessory structures and the primary structures in their unison on the lot. These next few slides is what staff did prepare for you all this evening. It kind of gives an illustration of how we got here and how we're moving forward. The graphic here kind of gives information on if the accessory structures are in compliance with the city's ordinance for setbacks and also other development regulations. We did pull permit information, which I will show later on, but I want to at least point out one, the first structure in question is the garage structure, which was permitted, and it appears that this structure is in compliance. The second structure, which will be the living quarters, which is up for a special use permit, city ordinance requires that any accessible habitable structure has to go through this process if it has not been through it. Any legal nonconforming uses or structures that have been altered in the points to which they have lost their nonconformity are subject to these regulations per the city ordinance and zoning code. If you look at the building setbacks and the minimum requirements, you'll see what's highlighted in red is that there is a 15-foot separation of the adjoining property dwelling. That structure would not be in compliance given that the additions and renovations that have happened, which would have knocked the structure out of its legal nonconforming status or grandfather status. Staff is aware that we do need to re-advertise this request to include an additional variance for this lot. So with that recommendation, staff is recommending 30 days that we defer this and properly advertise it with the additional variance requests needed based upon the information that we have gathered, also from our permitting review. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that this council may have for me this evening.
City Attorney.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, my apologies. When I read the rules, this is a zoning, so the rule of rebuttal should have been also included. So I'm going to add that if you're okay with that, please. Persons both favoring and, I'm sorry. The presiding officer or his or her designee will introduce the proposed zoning amendment before City Council. Staff would then be called upon to present Planning and Zoning Commission planning recommendation and summarize the staff's written report. Persons both favoring and opposing the proposed amendment will be then provided an opportunity to address the council. The applicant for a proposed amendment or applicant's designated representative, if any, would be entitled to speak first, followed by other speakers in favor of the proposal for a total of 15 minutes. Those who oppose proposed zoning amendment would then be permitted to speak for a total of 15 minutes. By majority of council, may increase the total time for speakers, provided that each side is given the same amount of time. If there's more than one speaker for a side, the presiding officer may limit the time allotted for each individual speaker other than the zoning applicant. The zoning applicant may reserve a portion of his or her time for rebuttal. Thank you, Madam Mayor. My apologies.
No problem. Can I get a motion to open the floor for the public hearing, please?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to open public hearing.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Public hearing is now open. Director Smith, this is a public hearing. I apologize. This is a public hearing for all of those. Is the plaintiff here for the person, the owner of the house? I think the representative for the owner of the house is here. You can come up and speak, please, at this time, if you choose to do so.
Thank you so much. Thanks for not calling me a plaintiff.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
That's fine. First of all, I'd like to give my regards from
Your-
Ms. Gutman to.
Please state your name.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Carson Cochran. I'm a resident here in East Point at 2443 Constance Street. I would like to give my regards, or Ms. Gutman's regards to you. She is probably on a plane coming back from Rwanda right now. I'm picking her up at the airport at 12:30 tomorrow afternoon. So I've gotten lots and lots of photos of campfires and hippopotamus and hippopotami, however you say that. But she'll be glad to be back in East Point, her home. I appreciate the time that you've given us to talk to you, to relay some of the information to you. A mentor of mine wrote a wonderful book. It was called Death by PowerPoint. So I did not bring my PowerPoint slides today, but I did bring a few individuals who are represented quite well on this slide. So I guess I am using PowerPoint a little bit. We have the neighbor that lives directly across the street. If you would stand, please.
Carson. No,
Yes,
no, no,
ma'am.
no.
Oh, no?
You have to talk to the council and we'll address them later.
Oh, okay,
They'll
okay.
have an opportunity.
Okay, great, great. She is here she has lived in that house, which I just found out tonight was the former Irene Kidd's house, to represent that the house has been there since the late 90s. Again, from last week's presentation that I gave, I had friends who lived in the house adjacent to the left, and I knew that there were, again, residences there in the late 90s when I moved here in 1999 from their back porch. When Ms. Gutman acquired the house, they decided to renovate, pulled all of the permits that were needed, the demolition permits, the electrical permits, the HVAC, for that habitable structure. All that went through the city. Additionally, since it was mentioned in the back, the structure, which is marked as A, I had brought some information that showed that it was permitted. I've got the final permit, but the gentleman preceding me actually said that the structure was permitted. I know last week we talked about combining some issues with the garage that may or may not have been permitted. If it was permitted, I believe it was mentioned that it was permitted by mistake. But since it's on the agenda and on the floor right now, and it has been recognized as a permitted structure by the city of East Point, as well as the habitable structure has been fully permitted. The only thing that we're really talking about is the special use permit that only became known about during the inspection of the temporary, or not temporary, but the carport structure in the back. The city recognized that house and saw that it did not have that special use permit, even though it had been permitted to be rehabbed. Additionally, the neighbor who lives next door has a variance for the distance between the two structures, and Ms. Gutman is asking request from the city to also have a variance for that same distance between the two structures. So again, there's really no need to have an additional variance and special use request. Everything has been done to the structures under the guidance and permission of the city of East Point. Additionally, I lost my train of thought there, but additionally, but Ms. Gutman has gone through the process of advertising, sending the mailings out for those variances and for that special use. If you drive by her house, the posters are still up advertising what is being requested of the city. And that is the special use permit and the variance for the distance between the habitable structure that has been there since before 1999 and the special use.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
So, all of those who are proponents for this variance, please step forward. Those who want to speak in favor of this variance, please step forward. Oh, proponents. You a mess. Okay, just one at a time, one at a time, one at a time. Okay, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Carrie Ziegler. I live at 947 Parkside Terrace. And I'm speaking in favor of, I'm going to ask everybody to vote yes and approve the special use permit with the variance as well. The reasons would be that the habitable accessory structure that is in between the main house and the carport, that has been there since at least the 1960s. Someone's going to, they have a map that shows that that has been in existence for a very, very long time. And I think there may have been some confusion that that was a newly built structure, and that's why there's an ask for the variance, because normally you would not come in front of council and all these things for a structure that's already been there for a very long time. And therefore that structure really should be grandfathered in. There's really no need to, go through all the variants and the special use permits. Also, back in 2017, when Paula was going through the rehab of the structure, and I think it's important to note that it was a rehab, it was not a rebuild or anything like that. They did go through the permitting process. They did try to do everything that they needed to do. They did do everything with the guidance of the city and staff and things like that. They also did get a certificate of occupancy as well. And, with all these things, we kind of have to, ask ourselves, well, how is that the special use permit was either missed, or maybe it wasn't missed. Maybe the staff was thinking, oh, this place is grandfathered in. We don't need to do this. And I would also ask that everybody on council, Mayor's not here, so everybody here, approves everything tonight and not wait to try and blend everything together with the carport, because these are two separate issues. The carport is separate from the accessory structure, and really waiting for everything to come together. That's just going to drag this out even longer. And we've already gotten this far because there's a CZIM meeting, there's 2 planning and zoning meetings, there's 2 meetings for city council. So they've already gone through a lot getting this in place to amend the habitable accessory structure. So if you all defer it and just wait for everything to come together, you're really just dragging this on even longer and kind of making this process an even more arduous one.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tara Ingram. I live at 1312 Jefferson Avenue, and I'm here to speak on behalf of Kelly and Paula at 1262 Winburn Drive. I've got some concerns about why this is even up for debate, to be honest. I know that there was an issue. This is really a case of an existing structure becoming noticeable after the complaint of a structure that was built with or without permitting. I'm not really here to discuss that. But this is a building that has been in existence since at least prior to 1962. I've got some maps here from courtesy of the East Point Historical Society that are dated 1924 to 1962. And you probably can't see it, but on their property, there's clearly that building there. When they purchased that property, when the neighbors purchased that property, that building was there When that building was built in at least prior to 1960, it was to code at the time, which I understand codes change and variances change. But to ask them for a variance on a building that's been there for longer than I've been on this planet, seems foolish. So I am here to urge that we keep the two cases separate because they're two separate issues, and that we approve B, which is the ADU, which was permitted with a certificate of occupancy. As a resident of the city, it makes me really concerned that the city can really come after somebody who owns a property with a structure on it that was built before they purchased the property and drag them through this long, arduous process. So again, I'm here to urge that we keep them separate and that we approve Building B's special use permit and not require them to have a variance. Thank you.
Good evening, City Council. Marie Terry, 2855 Seven Road. I am for it because it is a historical site. And why would y'all give a residence all that problems? Why y'all keep giving them problems? I mean, it's up there showing you guys, they got the variance, they got all the permits that they need. So go ahead on and let them do what they need to do with their property. Don't give them a hard time. Y'all done stopped so much development in this city. They're coming to y'all, they done all this hard work. So I say you guys need to approve this. 30-day deferment, they don't need it. They got other residents that don't live within that. Even me, I stay in River Park. And I can see that they have done their due diligence. Now y'all need to approve this. Don't put them no more, nothing else. Just approve it.
Good evening. My name is Rory Moon. I live at 2534 East Woodland Circle in Jefferson Park. I'm here today to speak in support of the special permit and variance request for 1262 Winburn in Jefferson Park as well. This structure in question was renovated in 2017 and had all of the proper permits and was permitted as an ADU with the full knowledge and approval of the city until now. I believe that the request for this special permit and variance should be approved. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sharon Williams, and I live at 1248 Winburn Drive, the old Irene Kidd home, actually. I moved in December of 1997, and the property that we're talking about that Kelly and Polly have in their back, the residence that they have in the back, there were people living there, and I knew those families that lived in the main house as well as the back house. And it was always been in use all the years that I have been here. I was glad to see, though, when Kelly and Paula moved in, that they did some needed renovations to that area, to that property. And I've been in it several times before Kelly and Paula moved in and after they moved in and did the renovation. So I'm hoping that you will not cause any more lingering with the variance, because surely something was done years ago to approve that. And they don't need to go through the heartache of this being denied or prolonged any longer. Thank you.
My name is Lee Eaglin Motster, and I live right next door at 1256 Winburn Drive. I am the neighbor that got the variance for the distance between the two dwellings. Paula and Kelly did this renovation shortly after they moved in. And they're really, I watched the city come out and the city inspectors come out for each and every permit that they pulled. And so they didn't proceed without the city's approval. And I don't understand why now it's not, you're still considering whether it's permissible or not when you've already approved it. So I vote that you approve tonight, not put it off any longer. You have approved it before, so let's do it again and put it to rest.
Hi, everybody.
Aye.
It's my first time, so. My name is Jamie Miles. I live at 2516 Jewel Street. I'm a 5-year homeowner here in East Point. And I would like to ask that you also vote yes on this variance for them. As a new resident in the city of East Point, that I purposely sought out a home here, it terrifies me to think that somebody could come into my backyard and see something. There's nothing there for the record, but I don't want to have any kind of issues like this after having having a home here. So I hope that you guys will vote yes for this. Thank you.
All right, so is there anyone that want to speak in opposition of this variance? Please come forward now. Anyone who wants to speak in opposition of this variance? All right,
Madam Mayor, I move that we close the public hearing.
so moved. All of those in favor? All those opposed?
Madam Mayor, I move-
Wait, Mr. Councilman Butler, Ms. Smith has, the Department of Planning and Zoning has something to say.
Thank you. I just want to state for the record, and I believe it's a requirement that for us to provide the Planning Commission recommendation, which was for approval.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that. All right. All of those in favor? All of those opposed? All ayes have, the public hearing is now closed. Can I get a motion to waive the first hearing?
Madam Mayor,
Or reading, I'm sorry.
I would like to make a motion that we waive the first reading.
It's been moved and properly second that we waive the first reading. All of those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All of those opposed? It passed. That waive the first reading has been passed. Can I get a motion to adopt the ordinance?
Madam Mayor, I make the motion that we adopt the ordinance allowing for the habitable structure.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that we approve the ordinance as written. All of those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All of those opposed? All right, the ordinance passed. All right, so thank you so much for coming out and that your voice is being heard. Public comments. Are we ready? How many public comments do we have, Madam City Clerk?
We have 5 public comments this
All
evening.
right, so let me read this. Chapter 2, Section 2, 2002, Rule 28, public may speak during the public comment section of the agenda. Speakers must complete a comment form prior to the start of the meeting. Subject may include any subject of choice. There will be a 3-minute limit time for each speaker. Speaker that have signed up to speak may give all or part of their time up to 3 minutes to another speaker for a total of 6 minutes of the speaker's time. Speaker may address the council only once during this time of the agenda. Speaker must identify themselves in their address prior to the speaking. Questions from the speakers may not be addressed during the public speaking section of the agenda. East Point residents will have priority over other speakers. There will be a total of no more than 60 minutes for public speaking sections of this agenda. Speaker may only address the presiding officer. Speaker shall observe all rules of decorum. No debate, no disrespect, no obscenities shall be tolerated. The presiding officer shall rule any such individual out of order that fails to comply with this foregoing message. All right, let's call the first speaker, please.
Up first, we have Ms. Marie Terry, and she had time given to her by Mr. Eric Brooks.
Okay, awesome. 6 minutes.
Good evening again, Marie Terry, 2855 Seven Road. First of all, I want to say I enjoyed that drag down. I really enjoyed that, y'all. Sure did. Very good. I danced. I sure did. Yeah, it's better than the Winds of Wine down. I didn't even dance at that. But let's get to it. Okay, first of all, I want to talk. I went to you guys' agenda. I printed it when I was at home. I did go through the agenda. Y'all took it off the agenda, item number 13, but I also want to talk about that. So y'all asked why y'all wanted a raise. You know, I got 13 reasons why actually y'all shouldn't ask for a raise. One is the Willingham corridor. It's not done. We done been there so many times with that. It's not done. It was supposed to be where the dirt's supposed to been dug up, however y'all want to call it. It's not done. And the Commons area, we're back and forth with the Commons area. That still is not done. Then you got the businesses across from 1734 East Washington, the Ace Hardware. It's still not done. That man that got that, he lost it. I guess he took too much time, but there's nothing being developed there. And the Nims house, I see that it actually is coming up on Conley Avenue. Very good, we're still not done. Then your property taxes. Of course, I have mine here. Even though it's appraisal, I do have mine here. I'm like, what a jump, East Point. What a jump. I mean, that's a jump. You're raising the property taxes. To me, it's a raise, unless you're going to change it, whether it's an assessment, whatever it is. I don't like it because my roads, my streets, my sidewalks, it's just bad. The drugs, the gunfire, no raise. Y'all got to do better. Y'all need to hire more police officers, more court enforcement officers. You're not doing your job. I understand that you're being paid a little, but hey, you got to learn how to do a lot for little. That's what I do. That's how I make it. It ain't about how much you make. It's what you do make. Y'all do not need that raise. Residents, when it was time for the pandemic, paying your utility bills. I had a lot of residents in River Park. Miss Terry, how do we pay this bill? It was said that you guys have the money. Many people didn't get their utility bills paid. They did not get it paid. Customer care. You remember back then, at time, 2 or 3 hours, customer care is closed. Why? Very bad. You don't need a raise. You're not doing anything to get it. The right of easement in this city, Walmart, 7 Road, the whole community. Your right of easement's not mowed. And I know the one outside 7 Road has been there for 2 months. That's ridiculous. Walmart's retention pond? No. You don't have enough workers. You're not paying out workers enough, but you want to give yourself a raise. I beg to differ. No, because actually the residents of this city, they do y'all's job. The city manager in every department. It's not being ran right. But you want to raise your property, and you want to raise, come on, people. It's not happening. Speeding in our neighborhoods, not enough policing, not enough code enforcement, not enough workers, they need a raise. Approving a budget for an event. I'm all for the events, people. Too many events, that's not good. The charter said for you to take care and serve the citizens, not yourself. That is the oath that you took in this city, to be a servant, And I want you to serve me. And if I pay you, you're going to serve me. And right now, you're not doing it. Using residents to do your job. I said not enough parking in this city. We don't have enough parking. You got thumbs up, you got queues. That's not enough parking. Then we got all that crime. I went to a meeting the other night in Egan Park, Motel 6. I know you heard about it. Council Lady Jozo Bailey, she was there. Council Lady Karen Renee, she was there. Not even the mayor was there. Y'all know the residents are tired, and I'm one of the residents. I'm tired. Motel 6 is a problem. You guys put a handle on that. And if the other city council didn't hear about it, Motel 6 either need to be shut down or something. Now, Chief Buchanan was also there. He said he would get another camera. We paid all that money for them cameras, and we was told in Jefferson Park, we was told in River Park, the cameras is put in a certain area where they need to be. Then he gonna say he gonna move it from that area where it must not have been a very important area. To me, a very important area is the residential. When you got a stakeholder in this city complaining to you about they got kids, people jumping the fences, people coming to their houses, dope outside the hotel, you need to go visit that hotel worker. Whoever owned it, I found out too, it was an LLC. Motel 6 is an LLC, 4001 International Parkway. It is an LLC. It's G6 Hospitality LLC. And I talked to Roman. So y'all need to get on your job. The people in Egan Park, the people in River Park, all over this city, y'all do not need a raise, and I don't blame Councilman Cook for taking it off the paper. because y'all have to do y'all job. You know, I've been running this city for a long time, and I walked it. I've done your job. But we ain't gonna keep letting these residents in this city do your job. You hire a city manager, he runs those departments, and the city council, you run the mayor. You know, y'all run the mayor, but that city manager needs to get on his job. The conversation needs to stop. Do your job. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Up next, we have Ms. Carrie Ziegler.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. My name is Carrie Ziegler. I live at 947 Parkside Terrace. I'm here tonight to speak about agenda item number 7. I do realize that it's on the consent agenda. However, I wanted to point out something that's really important about it, and hopefully it will spur discussion as well as some change. It looks like we are contracting Mullins Paving for a little over $3 million for our T-Splost project. They're located off of Empire Avenue, which is only 1.5 miles away from my house. Mullins has not been in compliance with the Clean Water Act since December 2021. Additionally, having an asphalt plant so close to residents is not good for our health. Their entire process of making asphalt takes place outside, which offers zero protection to residents. I suspect that because it is completely outside, that they do not have any permits for air emissions because nothing is coming out of a building. This means that what goes into the air is not regulated or monitored by any regulatory agency. Asphalt plants in general do put off toxic air pollutants such as formaldehyde, benzene, hydrogen sulfide, and methyl chloroform. Giving this company business, particularly with that great amount of money, will support them, and it hurts the health of East Point residents.
Thank you for your comment. Up next, we have Ms. Joan Lattimore.
Okay, good, you can hear me. My name is Joan Lattimore, 1252 Lyle Avenue, Ward B. I'm here tonight to complain about the lot on Pine and Bayard. It's a constant dumping ground. Trash, I posted pictures of the trash. I'd like to know, or maybe city council can find out who owns the lot. I know that the lot is for sale, so I think the owner should be fined or somebody should be fined. I do know that there's some piping that was left from the company that did the work on the streets. So they just kind of covered it up and pushed it in the corner. And currently there's a card table in the woods where the patrons are now playing cards in the woods and smoking. So I just like it to get it cleaned up. It's been going on for 10 plus years now. I've had several cleanups there in the past. I'm just freaking tired of cleaning up, but I mean, I will continue, but I think the city needs to do something about it. I did know that they had, some months ago, they had sanitation and everybody out and cleaned it up, and it really looked good and lasted for about 2 weeks, and then they were back. I think the police department needs to patrol that area more, to just tell them to get off the freaking property, because they continually come back. They had a barbecue a couple of weeks ago down there, so. Anyway, thanks.
All right, up next, we have Mr. Tom Wardlow.
Mayor Pro Tem, council members, my name is Tom Wardlow. I live at 1301 Mercer here in beautiful Egan Park in Ward B, and I serve as the president of my neighborhood association. I have 2 things I want to speak about this evening. The first one is, I think it's been 2 years, almost 2.5, since Councilman Butler introduced a proposal to bring Granicus in to do this work on short-term housing. It's taken an enormous amount of time to bring them here. I don't know, because I haven't looked at the numbers of how much we're spending on this process, but in 2.5 years, I'm kind of surprised that we haven't gotten a bit more information other than promises for more data. My real question around all of this, is there a performance component of the contract that we have? For instance, at what point would we have registered 50% of that, whatever the count was, 500 and some of these things in the city? Is there any such contractual agreement? And if not, since it's a contract, you probably can't renew it differently. But please, if you're going to give that much money away for a software development system, please get performance agreements in there. Anyway, item the second, and I want to thank Councilwoman Gordon for bringing up the idea of gunshots in our neighborhood. I trust by now you all know that in Ward B we have a very significant problem with a rental property called Motel 6. I know that the city attorney has expressed an opinion that you're sufficiently covered for any problems under the existing nuisance, whatever that's called. But I'm concerned that that is not being utilized in a way that protects my citizens, the people in my ward and the people in the other wards. Nuisance for gunshots, I believe that's stronger than nuisance. I'd like you to take a look at that nuisance thing again, and it might be worthwhile to publish the attorney's decision that it is sufficient to the public so we can see what the rationale is for the city to declare that the nuisance regulation is sufficient to protect us from gun play in our neighborhoods. Thank you.
All right, our last speaker is Mr. Zach Wolf.
Hi, my name is Zach Wolf. I'm a resident Egan Park on Harrison Road. My family, we live really close to the Motel 6, which has been brought up a lot. We are literally the first house after all the hotels on Virginia Avenue. So I feel like we bear the brunt of the crime in that area. Like, we get it first, right? And we've lived in that house for 4 years, and I can't tell you how many nights my family has gone to bed scared. And last 2 weeks, major scares. There was literally a major shootout at the KFC, which I understand is College Park, but it's across the street from Motel 6. That made news. There was at least 20 shots fired. A week prior to that, there was literally a drive-by shooting in front of my house. Man, I'm not a politician. I don't know all the rules. I'm a rookie to come into city council meetings, but all I can tell you is if I had the money to leave, I would be gone right now. And I think there's a lot of people that feel the same way. The crime is rampant in Virginia Avenue area. I don't really care what the rules say. I'm just pleading to get some attention to that area for my family and the other residents of that neighborhood. I also think beautification is a very easy tool to potentially deter crime in that area. It's a big litter area, needles, bottles, trash, and people here, council members have been in contact with me. I've been in contact with them. And I think the city of East Point is responsive to my concerns. I'm just showing my face tonight and my words to, just to continue to press the issue that change is needed over there. It's a criminal breeding ground. It looks like a criminal breeding ground. That's where the beautification, in my opinion, comes in. I think it's an easy way to create some jobs. The Willingham corridor is the other entrance to our neighborhood in Egan Park. that is just a automotive dump site / weed breeding ground. So it just looks terrible. I know looks don't mean much, but I do think they mean a lot, right? Like if you go to beautiful neighborhoods, it's like it shows that people care, right? Like that's why I think beautification is an easy, it's not a fix, but I think it's easy, right? Creates jobs for the city. And it just shows criminals that people here care. And I think the Virginia Avenue and Willingham Corridor are the entrances to our neighborhood, and they both look like places for a criminal to do activity. And I also would love more cameras at Motel 6 because we did so graciously get one on Lee Street. Thank you.
Those are all the public comments we have this evening.
Thank you for all the public comments and the residents who came out to speak. Please know that we hear you. Consent agenda items. Can I have a motion, please?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make a motion to approve consent agenda items numbers 5 through 12.
You have a second? It is moved and properly second that the consent agenda items be approved. All those in favor? All those opposed? The items were all approved. All right, next up is number 14. Can I get a motion for number 14, please?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make the motion to open discussion for the resolution authorizing submission of joint offers with MARTA for the purpose of acquiring property rights for the construction of the Cleveland Avenue Metropolitan Parkway Arterial Rapid Transit Project within the city limits of East Point.
Can I get a second? It's been moved and properly second. All of those in favor? All those opposed? Okay. The agenda item number 14 passed. All right, so did it pass? Or was it open for discussion? Oh, it's open for discussion. I apologize. Sorry about that. I could hardly hear you. All right, so anyone who wants to discuss this item? All right, City Manager, I'm sorry, Deputy City Manager?
Good evening again, Mayor Pro Tem and Council.
Yes.
Again, the item before you is a resolution authorizing submission of joint offers with MARTA for the purpose of acquiring property rights for the construction of the Cleveland Avenue Metropolitan Parkway Arterial Rapid Transit Project within the city limits of East Point. Just to give you a little history about the project, about a year ago, city staff met with MARTA and city officials met with MARTA to discuss their upcoming projects that would impact the city of East Point. One was the South Fulton Transit Initiatives, the Arterial Rapid Transit Project, as well as bus network design upgrades. The main focus of the meeting centered around bus stop enhancements. During that discussion, information about the Arterial Rapid Transit Project and bus network design were subsequently presented at the July 11th, 2022 council meeting. So fast forward almost a year, MARTA is now in the position to actually start acquiring the rights of way to construct the ART, or the Arterial Rapid Transit System, that will run along Cleveland Avenue from the East Point MARTA station to Browns Mill Road in the city of Atlanta. We've been meeting with them since April, which is around the time they first submitted the design plans for permitting for that portion of the system that will run through the city of East Point. In order for them to start the acquisition process, one of their requirements is to have a resolution with the city of East Point authorizing them to actually negotiate, enter into any other agreements with property owners for which they will be purchasing rights of way for the construction. MARTA will be responsible for all financial obligations associated with the acquisition of the rights of way. However, the resolution does state that any documents associated with the negotiations, purchases, MARTA will provide us copies with those documents as they move through the process. So tonight, we're requesting, staff is just requesting that the resolution be approved.
Thank you, Pro Tem, Madam Mayor. Quick question, is this part of a bigger plan with MARTA? They, in reference to the rail, they were gonna be running this all around the Atlanta, so in the metro area, is that correct? Or that's just one area?
This is just one of
That's it?
their, yeah, this is just
Oh.
one of their projects, which is, it's more of a, I don't know if upscale is the right term, but it's a more advanced form of a bus system. So there will be approximately 25 stops along the route. There will be advanced messaging boards that will notify passengers of oncoming buses as it travels along that Cleveland Avenue corridor. So this right now is just specifically for the Cleveland Avenue Metropolitan Parkway corridors that run in the city of East Point and the city of Atlanta.
And just to follow, what's the timeline if the resolution goes through in reference to all of this?
Their timeline, they're looking to start construction in the fall of this year. So right now, they're finalizing their 100% plans through the permitting process. They're now in the process of attempting to start the right-of-way acquisition process and negotiating with the affected owners. So probably all of this summer, they'll be moving through acquisition in hopes of starting construction in the fall.
Okay, thank you very much. I yield, Madam Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Pro Tem. And I believe this is just the extension of the study MARTA had done basically a decade ago, when you realized the rail system only can do so much. What you got left is surface transportation. I think they also went to California and looked at the system out there and came back with the fact that if they did changes that were actually in the street relating to bus traffic, and using a light term, the rapid bus traffic, it would also improve transportation from stop to stop. Now, what we probably are missing right now is some documentation, pictures, what have you, just basically showing us the big picture again. Where we are right now in East Point, what the growth is going to look like over the next couple of years. And a lot of these changes requires MARTA to partnership with the city, taking hold of some of the land that we control more so than MARTA. And I don't think we can confuse this with what MARTA is also trying to do right outside of each MARTA station. This is somewhat in between MARTA stops. I'm pretty much on target with what I'm saying here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's the way I remember.
It's its own standalone project.
Right, that's what I remember. And I think just in Atlanta, just a couple of weeks ago, they pinpointed one of the rapid bus short runs, which is more like an express bus type thing. All right, so what we are about tonight is just trying to what? Approve a resolution that we don't have in front of us, but we're telling the city attorney to write one up.
No, the resolution is
It's in the
attached to the
package.
agenda item.
It's
That's
in the
what's
package.
missing, all right.
It's in the package. All right, so do we have a motion on this item?
Yes, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I make the motion that we adopt a resolution authorizing the submission of the joint offers with MARTA for the purpose of acquiring the property rights for the construction of the Cleveland Avenue Metropolitan Parkway art project within the city limits of East Point.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All of those in favor? All those opposed? Ayes have it. Resolution passed. All right. So comments from council. I think we're down to that. Comments from council?
Madam,
I'm going to go with Councilmember Gordon. I know her light was flashing. Go ahead. I'm going to start on that end.
I'm so sorry. Okay. Thank you. I'd like to, just thank everyone for coming out. We had a full house tonight, and it was good to see everyone, and thank those who are watching online. I want to give a special thanks to everyone from our staff, including the police department, code enforcement, the city clerk's office, who assisted us in getting the HOA boot camp off the ground. It was a huge success. I also want to thank the communities of Savannah Walk and Heritage Park for the cleanup on Saturday. We had a lot to clean up, and we had a really good time, and we look forward to doing more. Madam Pro Tem, Mayor Pro Tem, I have an appointment that I'd like to make at this time.
That's fine, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to appoint Nate Smith as the Atlanta West CID representative.
It's been moved and properly second. All of those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Can you state that name and spell it for the clerk, please?
Yes, ma'am. Nate, Nate, Smith, Smith, and we can get Mr. Gerald McDowell to provide the contact information. It's not a city board, but it's, yeah, we'll reach out to them.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Council, are you
Oh,
done?
that's it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Council member comments.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for coming that was here. Once again, we did have a full house, and for those that are watching via social media as well. Again, I want to give a huge shout out to Mr. Swain for his drag down. It was, when I turned the corner, I was like, oh, you did this. It was an amazing turnout, and I'm looking forward to bigger and better things in the year to come. Also, because I had a previous engagement, I did the Juneteenth celebration was just as awesome. So kudos and congratulations to you that as well. Residents, we know that there are some issues that are going on, and we do hear your concerns. And we do understand. We are working diligently with our police department and code enforcement as well to continue to do everything that we can possibly do to make this a community that everyone would love to live in, and those we still, encourage those to more to come here. So like I said, we do hear and we do understand, and we are going to continue to work hard, work together to make East Point a beautiful place and somewhere that everyone would like to come and live. And I also have 2 appointments as well.
Okay.
For the Biter Board, I'd like to appoint Helen Nicole Ransom. And that's Helen, Helen, Nicole, Nicole, Ransom. And I will forward you.
Need to make a motion.
Oh, I'd like to make a motion. Oh, and one more appointment as well also, I'm sorry. For our Ward C appointment for DDA, we'd like to, Councilmember Cook and myself would like to nominate Mr. Richard Dillard.
Spell that.
Make a motion for those 2
No, you have
nominations.
to do them separate.
Okay, oh, you have to do them separate. So I'd like to make the first motion for nomination for recommendation appointment to the Biter Board. It's going to be Helen Nicole Ransom.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?
Okay. and
The
I-
ayes have it. It's been approved. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And the second motion is nomination for Mr. Richard Dillard for the Ward C DDA appointment.
Second. It's been moved and properly second. All of those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. That board has been approved.
Thank you, and I yield, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Councilmember Butler?
First of all, I would like to thank Mayor Pro Tem Karen Renee for 3 years of Juneteenth. That's a phenomenal accomplishment. She and I were the first, before even the federal government, to make the motion that we make that a holiday, and to have it recognized and to do such a great job. I really do appreciate your leadership on that. I too want to thank Chris and Richard for the Drag Down event. It does highlight the diversity of our city, where everyone is welcome, and it was a great time. So it's great to have such diverse events so close together, showing the strength of East Point. I would like to thank my colleagues for the first step in bringing healthcare back to East Point. It's an important first step for us. The concerns of my 2 colleagues are not ignored. Their questions as the process go through will be answered, and I'm sure we'll all be on the same page. Thank you very much. Have a good night, East Point.
Councilmember Cook?
Thank you, Provision Mayor Pro Tem. I want to not overstep my boundaries as it relates to the city manager's staff, but I do want to make this acknowledgement. For the last, I want to say maybe about 2 months, the financial division has been really working very hard to deal with the impact of COVID in that particular division with employees. In fact, citywide. But we had some special circumstances as it related to the start of the 2021 audit process, which I understand is coming to an end right now. And based on some requests from the auditors, there may be some conversation with council members as to what those results would amount to. But the real key point here is that we had staff members who had to really march to the drum. It's unusual where we have a problem that requires employees to put in 10, 12, 14, 16-hour days and do it not just once a week, but almost a whole week of activities. Some of those employees don't know what a weekend is because they haven't seen one in such a while. And I'm not that concerned about the outcome of the report itself because we had quite a bit of interference as it related to computer reports and so forth and so on. But I think the employees did an outstanding job of meeting the current needs with all the obstacles that they had to overcome. And it's not over. We just finished year 21. They got to start on fiscal year 22 real soon, like within a week. The fiscal year of I'm about to get myself confused. 23 is ending in a few days. So we'll have a new fiscal year start, but we got to close all this stuff behind us. Now I'm saying all of that because under that cloud, we have managed to maintain a very good credit rating with Standard & Poor's. That's going to be announced too real soon. And that's very important to us as a city who we're not loaded with cash. We have to borrow money from time to time like anybody else. But it's very important that we always stay in a strong position to demand the lowest interest rates on financing expenses. And that's what it's really all about. All right, enough said, because if I keep talking, it's going to sound like it's a budget committee meeting. I pass.
Thank you, Councilman Cook. Councilman Josette Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Pro Tem Karen Renee. I just say that slowly. I just want to thank Christopher Swain again. That was a fabulous time. The community was out. We got a lot of great publicity in terms of how we come together as a community. The diversity is our strength of our great city. And then, of course, thanking Karen Renee for that fabulous Juneteenth event as well. It brought the community together again with Greek organizations giving away books. We had a car show. We had a band. It was just a fabulous time for everyone in East Point to come together and celebrate a great national holiday. I want to also thank the residents for coming out and speaking out about their concerns. We are working very diligently along with the police staff, I think along with the police chief and his staff. What's great is that the police has written grants for additional cameras. I think that's going to really serve to benefit all of East Point, especially some of the ills that the residents mentioned today, as far as on Virginia Avenue, where the hotels are. Councilmember Karen Renee and myself did present the Safe Hotel Ordinance because of those ongoing issues. And at this moment in time, one of the problematic hotels, they are now in court or about to be in court because they're considered a nuisance. So a lot of work has gone into that under the leadership of our chief, and we'll continue to work on behalf of our great residents for our great city. And I just want to acknowledge their concerns and know that we're working diligently on those. Thank you so much. I yield.
Thank you. Councilmember Robertson.
Thank you, Pro Tem, Madam Pro Tem. I tell you what, we're not perfect, but East Point is truly on the move. I mean, if you just look back and assess all what's going on, as we continue to try to make sure we focus on the quality of life of our residents, we are still working together to do our best. And this weekend showed the diversity of community engagement and community output. And beyond that, I'm just so happy to hear about that. In reference to Ward A, we had a Yard of the Month, and I forgot to announce it. It was Conrad and Tiffany Alberto in Frog Hollow. They're newly residents of East Point, and their yard is fantastic. So thank you so much for that on it. I want to thank the city manager. He allowed me and Jeff Reeves to drive around Ward A, and we've identified areas of street calming. So we're listening. We actually stopped and met and talked to residents on the spot. So we are trying our best to go and address those street calming issues. And thank you, Darren, for allowing Jeff Reeves to ride around. And we had a great time engaging right on the spot of trying to make things happen. East Point, again, is on the move. As we continue to be on the move, save the date for July 22nd. Ward A, Love Thy Neighbor, will kick off a conversation for the unhoused and unsheltered at the library. All are invited. It's going to be a heavy lift, but we're going to start a conversation to see how we can be better and how we can figure out to provide resources for those who need it. And on the 29th, it's the third annual Love Thy Neighbor Cookout at the park, at Sims Park. So we are, again, on the move. Black Art in America, big shout out. They also had a Juneteenth celebration out there, and I went by there, and you have to go see Black Art in America. That brother Najee is hitting it out the park. We have so much culture and diversity, and a lot of things are going on. So again, East Point is on the move, and everyone should be proud. Everyone. While we're still not perfect, we're in a good place right now. I yield. Pro Tem, Madam Mayor.
It's funny. Thank you all for a great meeting tonight, and thank you for the residents that came out. And I do want to address just a few things, and I'll close. Pine and Bayard dumping, that has been an ongoing problem in Ward B. And I do want to thank sanitation, because this is where a lot of our dollars are spent when people are dumping, and then our city employees will have to go out and clean it up. And it's almost on a regular basis. It's like time we clean it up, somebody else will find something else to dump there. And a lot of that is construction debris that they leave behind. I mean, they're dumping. And so I know it's got to be someone who knows that area extremely well. And I'm asking neighbors and our residents to pay attention, get the tags and the numbers on that. Even if we do have cameras in that area, sometimes cameras won't capture everything. And so we're looking forward to capturing all of those people who are dumping and to bring a healthy fine to them. Egan Park, thank you guys for coming out. We do hear you, and we are working to resolve the problem. Our chief of police is on top of this, and our interim city attorney as well. They are looking at everything that they can do to make sure that we bring peace and tranquility and cleanness to that community. And we will stay on top of that as well. So tonight, thank you for everybody to come out. Our Madam Mayor is out of town. It is a family. She is with her family. And so we do miss her dearly, and we welcome her back. So thank you so much, and I will take a motion to adjourn. Oh, I'm
No.
sorry. Is there any executive session meeting or session items?
None from legal.
No, ma'am.
Council?
Not here.
Okay. All right, everybody's holding their breath. All right, so can I get a motion to adjourn?
You certainly can. Madam Pro Tem, I reviewed the agenda. We've only had a few minor corrections to make, but the agenda stayed intact. We have finished our business for this evening. Therefore, I move that this meeting be concluded.
The motion has been properly moved and properly second. All of those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Good night, East Point.